Hey everyone, my name's Jose Avalos. I'm an account manager with Blue People. I'm here in Houston, Texas, and today I have the privilege of interviewing somebody from our headquarters in Monterrey, Mexico. His name's Rodrigo Ochoa, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about him in a bit, but we're really excited to discuss the topic of serverless today, but answer a couple of FAQs and then even something more technical for some of the CTOs and CEOs on your team. So, Rodrigo, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, as Jose said, I'm Rodrigo Ochoa. I come from a background of software development. Then I evolved into a solution ops architect and then the technological design of a company here in Blue People. And I've been going through a lot of changes, important changes in software development, starting with linear programming, then object-oriented programming, then functional programming, which made all the asynchronous programming possible. But now it's serverless development, which is the main topic for this conversation.
Perfect. So, in the little short time that I've been with the Blue People team, I keep hearing Rodrigo's name as the go-to for any type of like tech question or anything, and that's a lot to say when you work at a software development company. So, can you tell us a little bit more about the experiences that you've had with the team, how many years, and some of the cool projects that you had a chance to work on?
Yeah, Blue People has just celebrated its fifth anniversary. I've been in the company for 4 years. I started in the company as a project manager because it was a really small company, but then our work and our performance in each project made us evolve really fast. We started out being, I don't know, cool around 10 people when I started, and then at the top we were around 100 people. And it's all because of the performance in each project. So I evolved as project manager, then some administrative work on the technological side, and then I became the CDO because I was really interested in that the designs we provide for these projects were the best possible. So I'm a huge believer that a project should be done in the technology that it should be done, not in the technology I have experience or I know how to control. So I believe that's why I ended up with the responsibility of making most of the designs for the customer projects, and I believe that's why people keep telling you to ask me any technological question because most of them are my designs anyway.
Got
So,
it. Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, you're still this day always my go-to person to ask. So, getting now more into the topic of serverless, can you tell us some of the differences between serverless development and the more traditional development?
well, serverless can be told from two point of view, from the point of view of the developer and from the point of view of infrastructure, right? So basically, is when all this cloud thing began booming, it was all about infrastructure as a service, right? And it was still magical because I mean, it usually takes a lot of time to buy servers and to get them set up and put them in the rack, to prepare the cold room and having guys that can administrate all the wires and stuff. So whenever you had infrastructure as a service, when you can just create a virtual server in a console, which is the main feature of the cloud, it gives you a lot of versatility. Like for example, if you're gonna put an update into production, you would just create a mirror server, install the update, and then just switch IPs. So your downtime was zero. At the time, it was marvelous, but serverless as a whole takes it to another level. Serverless is mainly cloud functions or cloud services that doesn't gives you the same functionality as infrastructure, but it doesn't require you to administrate network or operating system or updates. Your application doesn't go down because Windows wants to be wants to do an update, right? It's basically similar to a microservices architecture, but it's way more than that. It's a container manager.
Awesome.
And huh?
Cool. Well, and now you mentioned a couple of benefits already, but do you have like what are some of your favorite benefits for going serverless, and maybe some of the clients' benefits that you've seen that this is one of the top reasons why they love to go this route instead?
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is not one of my favorite benefits because coming from a development background is different. But I believe the favorite benefit of an organization should be cost. I mean, availability is really expensive. So if you don't have any users at night, you still need to keep your infrastructure available if any user want to log in, or if there's an emergency. So availability is really expensive, and with serverless infrastructure, you are just charged for the time that your infrastructure is processing information. For example, if you don't have any users at night, or at off hours, you don't pay for that infrastructure. As opposing with virtual servers, which needs to be on and with the size needed to fulfill your full capacity. So that's the main benefit for serverless development would be cost. But I explained a little bit of how it works and why is it different. But it's abysmal. No, the difference in cost is huge with a good design, right? Not just because it's not a checkbox where you would just check this is serverless, this is not, right? So it needs to be together with development. So serverless is a combination of both development and infrastructure. So there's where my personal favorite benefits came into place. Development's a lot faster. You don't have to implement a whole framework to release an API. They are just individual functions, individual cloud functions, which auto manages the container which is needed to run these functions. Also, the API is another server. You know how it's a really bad practice to have files on the database or have files on the server. They need its own FTP server, so they do manage a bucket where you can manage and stream these files whenever. So this is a whole process of serverless development that makes development so much easier. For example, if you need to send an email notification, usually you would implement a framework, an SMTP client, and it will come out to be like a whole file of code just to send an email, right? I mean, you can copy and paste it for another project, but still needs to be there, right? In serverless development, if you want to send an email notification, you just call another cloud service that sends that email with a pre-configured template. So that's also with face recognition. You just call a cloud service instead of implementing a client library, which needs a huge amount of GPU. You just call this a service, and it charges you fractions of a cent of a dollar to consume that service. It still needs to be well designed for the expenses not to go above budget. But I mean, it's one of the best. It's one of my favorite benefits. How it makes development so much easier and with less defects or bugs.
Awesome. Well, one of my following questions was, can you tell us about trading capital expense for variable expense? And I think you answered some of it already in this last answer, but is there anything else there?
Yeah, of course. I always like to put this in a perfect example where the electricity that runs through most of the homes of our viewers is a variable expense. The alternative would be to buy a huge battery that would need to be as large as the house. I don't know, probably. And you have two problems. Either you pay for too much because it expires in a year. I don't know, I imagine. Or you ask for too little. I mean, the worst thing that could happen is that you consume the energy you paid for in less than a year, and now you have no electricity at home. And the battery itself, it's really expensive. Imagine if that were a real situation, right? It will be really expensive to tell us just paying for electricity as you go, right? You will never know how much the electric bill will be, but you know it's around your budget, right? And it's never gonna go out of proportion, because I mean there are not enough appliances that you can connect to the house that would make the electric bill out of proportion. And the battery will either let you out of electric energy, or with a lot of really expensive electric energy left over. So that's the most vivid example of how variable expense should be. I know there's a lot of questions about the specifics, but the one thing I can tell you is that unless you have a bad design, it's never gonna be as expensive as having inside infrastructure, considering the cost of real estate, where you need to put the server there, you need to have server administrators, you need to have network providers, fixed IP, and all of those that goes into, instead of hiring experts, You just hire a cloud expert that knows how all these services work.
Perfect. Well, thank you for that extensive answer. Um, Staying on the serverless topic, to maybe address questions that the CEOs may have, how does this affect the overall business model?
Well, it has two benefits because when going serverless or going cloud, it does require money. It does require an investment. So the main benefit it would be cost reduction, but that's the most tangible promise that going serverless can give you, or going cloud can give you. The real advantage is that the technology gives you unexpected advantages. Your business would be able to do more because now you are working with the latest technology. For example, right? I love to give this example is whenever the first iPhone was released here in Mexico. I mean, its main objective is to have apps and to call and text, right? And using the internet to do instant messaging and all that stuff. But I remember downloading an app that would tune my guitar with the microphone and the frequencies, and by no way that was the main objective of releasing the first smartphone ever, right? But it was possible because the microphone was there, the software development kit was there, and someone just came up with the idea that would not be possible if the smartphone wasn't released, right? So going cloud gives your business a lot of more opportunities to reduce costs that otherwise you wouldn't be able to, or to even extend your business model and to offer services that you were not able to provide before.
That's a great example. That's true. So can you tell us now more about the Blue People team itself? Like, obviously you're very capable, but what other things does Blue People have as a company and then as a team to develop these serverless solutions?
Well, it's part of the recruiting itself and part of how they are trained in the project itself. Right? They are all working in high level design with the latest technology, and most of the time we're working with projects where there are no 5-year experts because the technology was just released and was just stabilized. I remember when Angular 2 came out, it was a huge announcement from Google, and 2 days after we were already working on our first Angular 2 project officially. So there are no 4 or 5-year experts on the technology we use, but we do have previous experience. Like managing JavaScript or functional programming is really helpful when designing this asynchronous serverless solutions, right? So the team is not evaluated through experience but through talent and through their problem solving capabilities, and they go through psychometric exams and they're tested on what they can achieve, not what their history told us they achieved, right? And from my point of view, they've gained a lot of experience working in previous projects with Blue People because they do have a lot of responsibility. They're not huge like micromanagement processes that tell them how to code. They need to solve the problem themselves. So personally, the 4 years in Blue People feels like 15 years everywhere else I've been.
That's
even
awesome.
even as a project manager, a developer, and I could tell you that the one story of the one developer we had, which was nowhere close computer science. He wasn't a developer. He was self-taught because he had another major. It's still in engineering, but another major, and he advanced so fast because he had the problem solving capabilities, and I believe that's for everyone. If he would have started in another company, probably would still be in junior wise because he's been here for 2 or 3 years, and I believe it's probably the same story for everyone else, right? So I believe Blue People's experience here count more as in any other place I've ever been.
That's great to hear, and I think that's a trend that's going on in large corporations too. maybe even not placing that much attention anymore on like their degrees or anything, but like, are you able to do the work? Are you able to solve problems? If we put an assignment in front of you today, are you going to be able to find a solution? And if I know you guys test extensively on that, so that's really great to hear that the full team has those capabilities to do so.
Yeah, because whenever you're recruiting, you always encounter the curriculum of this guy that has 1,000 years of experience, and it's really expensive, and you hire him because you think it's gonna solve your problem, and then he's there sitting down, and you have the 15-year-old guy, junior developer, that's going way faster, right? So experience doesn't dictate how talented you are. So we believe that hard. We evaluate the talent people have right now instead of the experience they've had throughout the years. Of course, experience helps you, but right. you also need to be talented to make a successful project or a successful solution for our customers.
That makes perfect sense. So just to end it, this interview today, can you tell us just a few success stories, maybe one or two of clients that you guys have helped them switch over to serverless and that they're extremely happy today?
I'll make you one better. I will tell you two success stories that would not be able to be possible without serverless.
Okay.
we had this customer that had really small budget, but the project was so significant. But he definitely didn't have the budget to build a data center for this project, right? So our only option was serverless. Thank God he came to us, because it's not common for a software factory to have this much expertise in serverless development, right? So there was a possibility. He had other offers on the table, but those offers didn't consider the cost of infrastructure whenever that solution went into production. It was just the development hours, right? So the development hours were pretty much a little lower than our competitors, because developing serverless is easier, right? Mm-hmm. Well, it's not easier, but it takes less time, right? It's less time consuming. And so the project was successful, and MVP released into production, and the infrastructure cost was around $17 a month.
Okay.
So it doesn't compare at all with the cost of actual physical infrastructure. I mean, at least the one server on the corner of the office would have cost more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the one, and we had another one that had huge increment in traffic over certain periods of time. Like it would be like pretty much 50,000 people that would be connected at the same time, but then a few hours without any traffic, or just one or two persons. Mm-hmm. So if these were physical infrastructure or even virtual infrastructure, you would have bought a huge server for the spikes. I mean, for the large volume. And over the rest of the day, you would still have to maintain that large amount of infrastructure to fulfill the objective of the project. So serverless was the only way to go, because again, without serverless, this project would have gone over budget, right? Mm-hmm. So now the serverless solution was able to handle the spikes and would just charge for the computing time on the spikes. And pretty much at night or during low traffic hours, the cost of maintaining the infrastructure was fractions of a cent of a dollar.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, and I remember going over the AWS certification course. That was one of the biggest things. What happens when you like in the middle of the night when nobody's logging into your site, and you need to be able to make that application continue to run at the lowest cost possible. So perfect. Well, Rodrigo, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited to continue to learn from you and the rest of the team, and I'll have more questions to ask the smart guy in the room later.
Thank you for having me. It was a great time.
All right, bye.
See ya.